So welcome to my final thoughts on Shenmue III, the game we never thought we'd get, we got. I played it, I finished it, and the games room suddenly became Christmas in here. And there's a lot I want to talk about today about Shenmue III because there's been a lot of build-up. And does the game live up to expectations, especially after 18 years? Yeah, there's a lot to talk about here. I first of all want to say that I enjoyed my experience with Shenmue III. I really did, and I'm going to talk about a lot of the things that I really like about the game. To begin with, I liked that the graphics weren't too different from the original. Even though they are better than the originals, it still felt in the same world. I enjoyed a lot of the same gameplay that was in the original games. I really had a good time. I gotta say, I saw a lot of reviews out there, and people were saying, oh, the game world is so small, where they hadn't left the first section of the game if they were saying that. Once you escape out of there, the game expands and gets a lot bigger, and even Yu Suzuki said it's around the same length as Shenmue II, and I think this game took me around 20-ish hours to beat. So when I began the game, as I said before, I was filled with a lot of emotion. There was a lot of nostalgic emotion from 18 years ago, and I tell you, that day I was so rattled with it. I was like, my God, I finally get the sequel to a game I played 18 years ago, and that was a huge deal. We're all waiting for it so much, and we'd all back the Kickstarter. When I started playing the game, there was a lot of emotion, and it was like, wow, this is really happening. And the first 4 hours of the game, I think, are very slow for new players. For me, I expected what I was expecting from Shenmue. So I think the review I can say to begin with is, for Shenmue fans, Shenmue III really works, and it works well. For brand new players coming in, I think they're gonna think, man, the first few hours of this game are very slow. What's the deal with Shenmue? What's the deal? And I think a lot of people will, dislike the game early on because it's a bit of a slow start. Even I was thinking, man, it's a bit of a slow start. I thought that as well. We left the cave, and then we're in this small village, and you're doing fetch quests for nearly the first 4 hours, going back and forth. And the whole game, quite literally, is fetch quests. Talk to this person, go back over here, go back over here, go back here, go back here. That's what the game is. But it's also littered with such interesting characters, so it kind of makes that worthwhile. Now, as I was running around, I noticed my health gauge, and I was like, oh, this health gauge here, I gotta keep eating. And I automatically didn't like that. The first thing I thought was, I don't like this. I don't want to have to keep on eating and raising my meter up. That's frustrating. And because you begin the game and you have no money. You have no money, and it's kind of like, oh God, like, you felt like you're like always trying to balance, getting money to, staying alive type of thing. But the game is kind of nice. You'll never just die. Your life will go all the way to the bottom. You can go and sleep for the night and replenish it. So there was a few days there where I just let the time pass until I had to go home to sleep and all of that. So I think a lot of people didn't enjoy that idea. I gotta say, as you can progress through the game, you get a lot more money. You don't even think about it anymore. You don't even think about it. It's also an important fact for combat later on. It is your health gauge. So you got to keep that up, and you can use items within combat. And so, anyways, we'll get into that in a little bit. So the beginning is all about fetch quests, but it also helps you get to know everybody in this small community. And it is a small little hub world that you're running around in, and certain sections are closed off to you. And later on, they become open. That's the only thing that I don't kind of like. I wish I could explore everything and eventually come back to certain areas. But some areas are like, no, I can't come here yet. And you turn around and you're like, oh, but I really want to go in there. And I felt they were limiting my freedom to begin with. Eventually, they open it all up. So you eventually get to some bosses and things that they just kick your ass. And you're like, oh my God, what have I got to do? And what you got to do is just do a lot of training. Do a lot of training and doing a lot of sparring and collect a lot of scrolls, move scrolls, and level them up and max yourself out to that level. Because I was frustrated fighting some enemies. I'm like, why am I getting killed so easily? I just went and leveled up within the game, and we're going to get into the combat system here. You level up, and then I went and I absolutely destroyed everybody. But I spent a lot of time making sure all my moves were maxed, and I enjoyed that aspect. I want to say that I did enjoy combat in the first 2 Shenmues a little bit more. This is kind of a level up system where you learn all your moves, and then you just kind of, it really is a bit of a button masher. Yes, you can execute combo moves for sure, but for me, I always kind of felt that if I leveled up my maximum like kung fu abilities and all that, my endurance and all that, I could do okay in combat. And I enjoyed combat, but I kept thinking back to the original first game, reminding me much more of a virtual fighter style of game, where this felt the same, but I didn't feel that the combat was as fulfilling. It was really good to do certain moves on opponents and knock them down, especially later on in the game. But overall, I thought combat was okay. I worked a lot of jobs in this game. I chopped a lot of wood, made a lot of money, and one other thing, another way to make money in the game is to go see a psychic. I highly recommend this, and the psychic will tell you your lucky color and your lucky number. All I'm going to say is always bet on those 2 things. I went into a turtle race. I bet on the yellow turtle. Yellow was my special color, my lucky color, and you win, right? So use those kind of things. Talk to psychics. It makes sense in this game. That was one thing I really liked, is that there's certain elements in the game, certain characters that you talk to that are really beneficial to your quest. And just I also want to say this about NPCs in the game, is that, yeah, it's back and forth a lot of times, but it's amazing how much voice acting is done in this game. So you might have maybe about 50 to 60 characters, and you're looking to you're doing a certain quest, you're looking for a certain character. You can talk to every single person and ask them, hey, have you seen this person? And they will say, yeah, I don't know who that person is, or, oh yeah, that person's down the road. It all changes, all their dialogue changes depending on the quest, and I thought that was truly amazing. And some things that I really like that harken back to the original is, yes, forklifting is back. We're doing forklifting again. It was very fun to revisit that. And some things that harken back to the past that are a little bit different is the arcades. So in the original game, there was a lot more Sega games. There's Hang On in there, Space Harrier, where you go in there now and they have QTE games, and they also have the old boxing simulator, which I've always enjoyed. That's really classic Shenmue. But I really thought there was a lack of arcade games, and I know that the deals now with Sega and this game are a lot different. But considering the time period, 1987 in the game, I would have loved to have seen things like Altered Beast in the game, and, you know, classic Shinobi or something like that, and we don't get that. We get some kind of like virtual fighter style chibi game, which is kind of a novelty. It's kind of nice that there is something included there, but I feel I miss those past Sega games. And speaking of past Sega things, in the capsule toys, I really miss all the old Sega capsule toys, and obviously those are no longer there. They have Shenmue collectible characters, which are really cool though. So eventually I got out of the first village. I got through that, and to be honest with you, when it ended, I thought, is this the end of the game? Because it kind of shows Ryo, he's practicing under the moonlight. I'm not saying this is no spoiler, and there's some narration, and I'm like, is this the end of the game? No way. No way. Thankfully, it wasn't. You get on a ship and we continue our adventure, and that's where the game opens up a little bit more. And the one thing that I really liked in the game was seeing past characters and past interactions, and there will no spoilers here at all. It was really nice to see some of those past characters and have certain conversations with characters that we haven't had since the first game, and so those things I really appreciated. Now QTEs are back. I was very happy to see a return to those. They are so classic Shenmue. So maybe you're chasing a character and you have to, you know, hit certain buttons at certain times to progress the story, and some of them can be very frustrating. Usually you always get it on your second try, but I was so happy to see that. I love the QTE events. And in the second part of the story, one thing that I really loved, and I got a little bit misty-eyed with it, I can't lie, there's one big shrine and you walk in and it says Save Shenmue Shrine. And it was for all the backers of the game, so you can go in there, you see a whole bunch of Shenmue like merchandise in the game, a pre-production artwork, a beautiful statue of Yu Suzuki going around. I looked at that and I was like, Man, this is so cool to see. And then seeing all the backer pictures on all the walls, and I went through all of the pictures. I saw some friends in there. And I just marveled at it, and I was very thankful that we did get this game. Now I'm getting to the final parts of this review. Unfortunately, the game crashed for me quite a few times. It did. There was one point in the game where I was out for the night and I was doing some exploring, and it was 8:45 in the game. And at 9 o'clock, the game goes to night and it sends you back to your hotel. So I was like, okay, well, that's fine. It'll send me back to the hotel, whatever. So I'm kind of walking back. 9 o'clock hits, sends me back to the hotel. And it goes to the loading screen. And it just goes to a black screen and nothing loads. And I walk out of the room, I come back, nope. So I reset it and did it again. And yes, it crashed once again. And I'm like, oh my God, am I caught in a loop? And I'd done so much in the game at this point. I'm like, what? So I was able to beat the glitch. It happened to me 3 times in a row before I said, okay, what I'm going to try to do is book it from the shrine that I'm at all the way back to the hotel. And it took me a few times to do it. It took me a couple times to do it perfectly. So I had to bolt, run there, make no mistakes going around a corner, getting caught on a corner or anything, and get to the hotel and activate my own save it before the game kicks me back there and tries to load me in and then save. So thankfully, I think it was the 3rd try I did it, I was able to get back to the hotel with like 1 minute game time remaining to beat that black crash screen. I hope that gets patched. I put it on Twitter that it happened to me. It seemed that it happened to a lot of other people. So I am not alone. I don't know if it's a PS4 Pro problem. That would seem unusual, but it's possible. Some people didn't have this happen to them at all. So that was kind of frustrating, but that didn't take away from my enjoyment, especially when I was able to recover from it, but it's still a bit like, oh my God, this is happening. Now, no spoilers. I'm going to talk about the end of the game, my emotions and feelings, and what I really think about Shenmue III. This is where it all comes together. We've been waiting 18 years for Shenmue III. And has it lived up to expectations? I think for Shenmue fans. Has Shenmue III done a lot of different things? Not particularly, no. It's done a lot that it was doing 18 years ago. And I want to say, when Shenmue 1 and 2 came out, they were revolutionary. You'd never seen anything like it. And you can say you didn't like the game at the time or not, but it was doing something brand new. Now, fast forward to 18 years later, is Shenmue 3 as revolutionary as it was when Shenmue 1 and 2 was released back then? Definitely not. It absolutely is not. In graphic-wise, in gameplay-wise, it's doing a lot of the tried and tested things that you did in the original. You're doing forklifting again. You're doing fetch quests again. You're doing, kung fu training with everybody again. And that's a lot of fun, and I was expecting that. But understand that this is not doing a lot of different things. Now, that being said, I got into the end part of the game. And I've been waiting 18 years for this. I've been waiting for it. And we get a little bit of story. Like, going from Shenmue 2 to Shenmue 3, up to the end, getting to the end of the game, I got a little bit of story about the Dragon Mirrors. That's not even a spoiler. I got a little bit of story about that. And it took a long time. It took hours and hours getting out different characters, the storyline of the past, or what happened with these Dragon Mirrors. I've been waiting to know what's been going on with this for a long time. We find out a lot, but we don't find out enough. I found. I got to the end of the game, and there's a really good build up to the end, and that's a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it, and that's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna, because I don't want to spoil it for anybody who's getting there. I don't want to spoil it, but it felt a little anticlimactic. I'll just be honest. I'm gonna be honest. After 18 years, yes, some things happen we've been waiting for, and the storyline continues. So there's nothing. It's not that it's even. I didn't expect it to be resolved, but I expected just a little bit more. and it's very little the storyline you get. And anybody who's finished the game can say that. The story is not really robust at the end at all. And I was just kind of left a little bit like, at the end of Shenmue 2, I feel the same way I did at the end of Shenmue 2. It's like, okay, more? And maybe that is the thing of a good game. I went all the way through the game. I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun chasing chickens and ducks and training. That's where the meat and potatoes of this game is, and that, when you really get into it, is a lot of fun. It's really fun getting stronger in this game and beating those opponents you couldn't beat. That's where the fun of the game is. The storyline is definitely a little lacking, and I really wanted a little bit more robustness there. I wanted a little bit more meat and potatoes, and I didn't get it. I got a little bit of veg instead. So I came away from the game and I was like, okay, I got Shenmue 3, but I feel I didn't get enough with Shenmue 3. And I know Yu Suzuki wants to continue on the story, and I'm there to support him the whole way. I love Shenmue more than anybody in the world. I love Shenmue, and I want it to continue. And I know he has so many parts planned for it. And will it continue? I have a sneaking suspicion that it might. But I really would like a little bit more fulfillment in the storyline aspect. I mean, honestly, it's so straightforward. And especially the third game, we should be getting a little bit more. It should become a little bit more. I don't know if we're waiting for the end game for this all to wrap up, and I get that. But to explain a few more things and give you a little bit more and a little bit more wow factor. And I don't think there was enough wow factor where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. It's more like, oh, okay, sure. That's kind of how I felt. But I can't stress it enough that I really enjoyed the game. And I hope you don't think I'm coming in here being negative on it. I just think after 18 years, I think it's a very valid thing to say. And for these points to be brought up this way, for sure. And can anybody jump into Shenmue 3? Yeah, I said that in my my first thoughts. I will change that now and say, I think it would be really good if you went back and played Shenmue 1 and 2. I think, Shenmue 1 is really about exploring Japan in 1986 and the whole Sega, arcade experience and the thugs and that feeling and the emotion and the passing of time, the weather dynamics. That game is great. And then when we went into China in Shenmue 2, that was almost exploring a foreign land to a Japanese character, and you were kind of seeing it through his eyes and how he was kind of like on the out with everything, and he was trying to get on the in with everything, and eventually he does, and he takes charge of it all. And so that was like a very different experience. Whereas Shenmue 3 is still in China, and you're just training once again, and talking to people again, and the story's not progressed enough to make it feel like its own game. It just feels like a part of Shenmue 2 more. It doesn't feel like its own unique thing with some different environments or, underground facilities. I must admit I do enjoy the last part in the game. I thought that was quite cool. I'll say no more. And the end boss was very, very cool. And I'll say no more. I think that stuff was really good, but I was hoping for a little bit more of a bigger experience with it, but I did have fun. So, guys, what did you think about Shenmue 3? I could honestly sit here all day and talk about Shenmue 3. I could do a 3-hour review on the game and talk about every single thing, all the NPCs, and there's a lot of really unique NPCs. I love the woman who runs the hotel. I thought she was like a lot of fun, and seeing old friends again and meeting new friends, and you have new friends come on the adventure with you, and it's really exciting. And it was more Shenmue, and that's what I wanted, and that's why I'm happy, because I got more Shenmue. I got to try the forklift more. I got to do more kung fu and talk to past friends. It felt like revisiting an old friend, which I did in this game. So anyways, guys, until next time.